is Elizabeth Baden. I've been with the city for the past 13 years. I know I'm introduced through the email, but I'm glad to meet you all Zoom style, finally. So hopefully we'll meet in person soon. But I'm open to any questions that you all have as far as about ADA. I'm excited to lead this awesome team, and I thank you all for volunteering your time to help. Also, I want to mention Miss Rachel McCauley. Some of you all may already know her. Hi, Rachel. Rachel has volunteered we have an opening, Mr. Paul Choquette. I hope I said his name correctly.
Close enough. Okay, close enough.
I'm a little fancy, Choquette. But he has moved, and Miss Rachel, she is now an appointee, and it will be determined at the next meeting. But I've heard great things about you, Miss Rachel. Is there anything you would like to say?
Thank you. I feel honored that I'm getting this opportunity, hopefully after the vote, and would love to bring what I know and what I've lived to this group. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move now to the next portion of the agenda, which is discussing the previous meeting minutes. Does anyone have any questions or in regards to the last meeting? It looks like it was January 13th, 2020. Was there any concerns or?
No.
No, ma'am.
We're just excited to have you on board.
Well, thank you very much. If there's no more questions, then I will move to the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan update. And Sarah is going to briefly discuss that if there's any questions there.
Okay. So I think you're all aware that the city did formally accept the transition plan that was established with phase 1 of our project. And we have begun phase 2. We have Kimley Horn still working on that for us, and they're utilizing a sub-consultant, Accessology, to go ahead and review the city's policies, both in hiring and just how we deal with our public, and what kind of alternative methods of communication we offer, things like that. They have begun by sending out departmental surveys, which we completed while we were at home over the past several weeks. I believe there are a couple stragglers that are finishing up, but they're very in-depth, and it'll be interesting to see what recommendations come out of that. Also, with phase 2, they will be assessing all of our city-owned buildings. So our fire department, everything that's accessible to the public, open to the public. So the city hall, police department, fire departments, things like that. So it's gonna be a really good phase of the project, and that should wrap up. I believe we should have, by the end of the year, we'll have the finished assessment and then the update to the transition plan then for the website. Does anyone have any questions about that?
I do.
Okay.
So what do we have planned for next year's budget?
Okay. So for next year's budget, with phase 1 of our transition plan, we identified it was like $460,000 or something like that annually for 30 years of improvements that the city would need to make. Those are estimates, and when you're doing construction estimating, which those are because they were for our sidewalks, most of it, there's a lot of contingency put on that. So for this next year, what we're planning to do is we will make improvements utilizing our sidewalk crew. And we will fix areas that have been identified through that. And so we will track that, and we will assign an estimate to those improvements to show that we are working toward that. But most likely, it may not total 469,000 because it doesn't cost the city that much to make those improvements, if that makes
Sure.
sense. But as far as the transition plan, originally, we had put in the budget for 250,000 for phase 3, which would be another large chunk of our sidewalks for the city. Now, we have not received those numbers from Marshall to find out what they're proposing to cut from that. But there is no, although we need to still be progressing forward, we need to have some amount assigned to that. And as such, we would just modify the scope with Kimley Horn. But there is no actual requirement on an annual basis of what we have to do for the self-assessment and transition plan. Now that we have one and we are moving forward and we're making repairs, as long as we are moving forward and there is something assigned to that.
Okay, because I know there was a proposal to cut ADA funds and we have a very tight budget.
Mhm.
What would you recommend? And I realize, it's hard to, you're gonna track the improvements of the sidewalks, but what do we need to have in there, bare minimum?
Well, the way that we were planning to make improvements this next year, there wouldn't actually be an individual line item for ADA improvements. That would all be absorbed through our budget that we have already for
In public
sidewalks and
works.
streets and things like that.
Okay, do you need funding to continue on with the consultants?
If we do pursue phase 3 this next fiscal year, there would need to be some funding for that. Yeah.
Do you know what the cost of that would be approximately?
That
Yeah.
currently the current proposal we have from them, which was based on a scope that I provided them. Well, okay, let me back up. Really, I gave them a dollar amount that we had been using, the 250,000, and told them to provide a proposal with a scope based on that, what they could accomplish with that dollar amount. So that's where we're at right now. However, if the city's budget needed to cut it to 100,000 just for this next fiscal year, we could do that, and I could go back to Kimley Horn and ask them to revise the scope.
Okay, so because I know it's going to be discussed next week.
Mm-hmm.
So when the discussion comes up, I could ask for, we need $100,000 minimum.
Sure.
That would be the bottom, the lowest that we could go.
No, honestly, if we needed to delay phase 3 for one fiscal year, honestly, if that's what we needed to do to balance the budget, I mean, we could do that. I don't think that we would be in trouble or violating anything by putting that off 1 year, because the reality is we're not going to be able to make those improvements within this next year anyways. And we already have so many improvements identified to bring us out to a 30-year timeline. That as long as we do plan to resume that once our tax revenue stabilizes the following fiscal year, then I think that's justifiable.
Okay.
However it works out.
We'll try to keep between $50,000 and $100,000 in the budget. That way, I don't want the ADA efforts to be lost, because it's been a lot of work just to get to this point.
I agree.
And if we lose a little bit of momentum, especially with the consultants' work,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, it's going to cost more to get them back on board.
Yeah.
So if we can just kind of go along at a very slow, conservative pace for this next year,
Mm-hmm.
I would rather do that than completely cut ADA out of the budget.
I agree with that.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go for 100,000 for budget purposes.
Okay.
Does that sound
I think
okay?
that's good. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Still
Thank you.
analyze a lot of sidewalk with that.
Okay.
Okay. So we've completed the discussion number 3 for the ADA self-evaluation and transition plan, and we also, we can go ahead and conclude the discussion of the ADA funds because it was discussed at the same time. So moving on to number 4, which was the discussion of the ADA initial survey, and Sarah mentioned some on that as far as assessology. And I tag team along with other department heads to work on completing the surveys for them to ask questions, just to make sure that we are compliant within the city. They just examples was making sure that we had the department titles for the ADA liaison, along with you all, the board, your correct contact information. And some of the other areas was mainly discussing our website, which I saw that was mentioned on the previous meeting that needed to be completed, and that is on our website. So that was the basic, getting that turned in. That's a start, moving us in the right direction to make sure that we are compliant. So did anyone have any questions about the initial survey or where we are with that? Okay. We will move. You guys you're making this my first time on here very easy. The number 6 was other business. Is there any other business that needs to be discussed that you all have? Yeah.
Yes, we have FOMA next week, and Rachel has been nominated to the board. So we just have to go through the formal process of through legislation. But then once we get through that process, we will have to finally establish the next component of the board. And Elizabeth or Sarah, you all may be able to better explain that, because we have the ADA board, and then as a part of that, we have the appeals board. Do you mind explaining how that works so that we're all on the same page for that, for appeals? Or I can attempt to do it, but I'm not positive.
It's not very clear.
Yeah, it's, I'll tell you what my understanding is, and maybe at the next meeting we can have another discussion about this and then finally do the vote. But we have our ADA board here, and we have to elect a chairperson. And my understanding is that that chairperson will then also serve on the appeals board, which is the real life version of this board, where somebody comes in and says, hey, I came across this out in Hendersonville. I cannot access this area of road or sidewalk, or these signs are too low and I've hit them. So they would come before this, kind of like Board of Zoning Appeals, and appeal or ask for changes to whatever this is, and that the chairperson of the ADA board is either a part of that or is also the chairman of the appeals board. But we probably need to figure out the language of exactly how that works.
Yeah. I think that is also something that they addressed in phase 1 of our self-assessment and transition plan. And I will need to, Elizabeth and I will go through and reread what their recommendations were, because I believe it was addressed in there.
Okay, great.
I just don't remember right now, but we'll look at that to be clear for next time.
Great.
All right.
This is Barbara. Was that, I don't have my notebook in front of me because I'm not at home. I'm in Memphis. Was that discussed in the transition plan? And then I'll go back and look at that. And if not, maybe if you send us the language of that, so we could all look at the language of what the appeal board started to be. So when you talk to us about it next time, we'll have it in front of us so we all can really see what it is and make sure we understand what the role is.
Certainly.
Okay. Was there anyone else that had anything else to say?
This is Barbara again. Peg, I understand what you're saying about the budget and being sensitive to that. I know we all need to be real careful that whatever we do, that we can demonstrate and our minutes show that we're moving forward. So even if it's buried under another line item or not a separate one, or the money's decreased, that we can all speak to what we're doing. So we realize we're being modest, but we haven't lost our momentum. I'm thinking from a regulatory perspective, if someone, asked me, you're on this board, what are you doing? I don't see a line item for it. It would be real clear how we need to message that. So we know that we're doing the best that we can with our resources.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I completely agree with that. Sarah, if there is a way, even if it's $50,000 or 75 or 100, if we can just keep it as a separate line item, it will help separately track that. If you don't mind relaying that to Marshall, you and Elizabeth, that way we can keep a clear track of where we're at with ADA. Would that be okay?
So are you speaking about the repairs now then? You want a separate line item for ADA repairs?
I would say for ADA repairs and any monies that we need to keep on, keep retained for consultant work, because I just don't want to lose the momentum with consultant work either. Even if they're just.
And I don't know that it needs to be, excuse me, I don't know that it needs to be, if for some reason we don't want it a separate line on, just some way that we all understand and agree where it is. And if we are all on a bus together and get run over, somebody's going to be able to say, wait a minute, the group did not forget, and they're respectful of our restrictions of money, but we're still moving forward. So I don't think it necessarily needs to say line item for this, but it's not only that there are earmarked funds for consultant, and that, as you mentioned, this would be done within the current sidewalk budget, but that those items are very, very clearly identified. So every time they do a sidewalk, you're tracking this not only was done because a car ran over it and broke it up, but it also fixed the ADA curb line or something like that, so that it's real easy to tick and tie that. So I don't know if a spreadsheet of whatever they do, if it meets any of the ADA things, we have credit for that in their normal processes. And I think that really indicates our very good faith effort to move forward despite some of the financial restrictions.
Yeah, so that's going to be something that Elizabeth will be doing. Our ADA transition plan has a part of what Kimberly Horn delivers to us is an extensive spreadsheet with every single panel of sidewalk and every curb ramp that they have assessed. And as we do make repairs and fixes, that is something that she will be responsible for, is going in and updating every location in our transition plan, showing that it has been repaired at what time, month is probably fine. But
Sarah,
on an active basis that we're moving forward. Yeah.
Sarah, is that sort of like the road map that we got on road paving, that there's a priority to the order of those repairs?
It is, but it's much better.
That's good.
Yeah, no, they did prioritize for us based on the severity of each location. They had a methodology that they went through and kind of rated each one and then set priorities. So we do have highest priority locations.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And I will say that I'm not sure if I know Ms. Brennan was asking about having information sent. There is also, and I can send it, but the transition plan, you may already be aware, but it's online as well. It's uploaded there, so, and it breaks down each area. That was one of the things that I told the other liaison committee that they could look over. But I do like for you all to have, so we could not, like you said, be all on the same page with it. And is there any other questions? Did you have something else, Ms. Brennan? Okay.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's Sarah. Did you have anything else before we close? Okay.
No, I'd just like to say that we're really happy to have Elizabeth in this position, and I know she's going to do a really fabulous job. She has a lot of experience with organizing seminars and things like that in her personal life, and she's a fabulous communicator, and I think that she's going to be a really great representative for the city in this role.
I'm so excited. Thank you for saying that, Sarah. We're so excited to have you, Elizabeth. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am. So it's nice to finally meet you, even though it's via Zoom, and we appreciate the effort that you have put in to get this meeting, the meeting pulled in so quickly. And we're very excited about Rachel. I appreciate all of you all serving on this board. It means a lot to the city. Thank you.
It definitely means a lot to me.
This is Barbara again. Peg, what do you think if now that we have our coordinator and Elizabeth there and all, do you think it would be good to have a press release or a small story or something about where we are, again, to message, because we know we've gotten a little bit behind, but just to message that this is a great step forward and we're using it within all budgeted money, and we're being very careful, but what we're doing, and sort of have some sort of update that maybe quarterly there's some blurb in the media that matches our website and all that, so that we're letting people know what we're doing. And I'm sure at some point we're going to have to publicize that there's an appeals process and make that pretty evident as well.
Oh yeah, I think that's a great idea. Sarah, what do we typically do from a city standpoint with a press release on a new employee? And I would love to weigh in on that.
The Tennessean actually has already done an article on it. They contacted us in April. Was it April, Elizabeth?
Towards the end of April. Almost, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So they did a little write-up, and they asked questions about what we were doing for our plan this year, and what improvements we had planned and things like that. So if you'd like, I'm sure it's on their website.
Okay, I'll contact Dave and have a discussion with him, Elizabeth, and we'll get together on a press release from the city for you, okay?
Okay. All right.
I can see you're thrilled. Can't be shy now.
It's fine. I promise. After this, Sarah can tell you, after the initial meeting, I'm very laid back, but I'm very hardworking, and I do like to have fun, but I do like to make sure that the job is done. So this is just an icebreaker.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. If no one else has anything else, and again, I appreciate all of your support again. And if you, I can send you, I know that I can give you my cell number as well. If you all ever need to reach out to me, I know you have my email, but at any time, even if it's after hours, I do not mind at all. I want to make sure that this is a great, that everything is up to where it's the standards that it's supposed to be at. And Sarah can tell you, how excited. I probably wear her out every day. I'm like, Sarah, I want to do this. But I am excited. But if there's nothing,
if you would like to send out your cell number, I highly recommend you do that via email or live on Zoom.
Yes.
Make it sure.
That's a good point, Tina.
Thank you. Thanks for looking out, Tina. But thank you all very much. And if there's no further business, the meeting will be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.